Welcome to our final video of how to build Flappy Bird in Unity, video number 4. Today we're just going to be importing art assets and making our game look very nice. So the first thing you need to do is go to this GitHub page. The link will be in the description. And you want to download the Flappy Bird assets from there. So you want to download the source code.zip. So that'll download that, and that'll open that. Cool. So you want to unzip that. So open up your files, right click, extract all, extract. That'll give you a file with all the Flappy Bird assets. And inside the Flappy Bird assets, there should also be a zipped folder, which you should also unzip. So extract all, extract, cool. That'll be our font. We'll get to that later. Okay, cool. Now, back into Unity, we can go into our assets folder, open our files. So let's open files, Unity, files, open this folder, and then drag in the Flappy Bird assets folder into our assets. Cool. So now we have our assets in Unity. Cool. We have our bird script. We have our bird sprite, our pipe sprite, all that stuff. Fonts. Cool. First thing, let's install the font. Since I've been talking about that, what you want to do is you want to open up the folder until you get to something that looks like this, and then you want to click this thing, the Tiny 5 regular. You want to go up here and click these 3 dots. So I'm going to click these 3 dots and click Create TMP Font Asset. And you want to click Generate Font Atlas, and then click Save, Save. That'll create a TMP Pro font. Then I'm going to go into our canvas, score, high score. We want to select both of them. So Shift left click, and then right here where it says Font Asset, I'm going to click that circle, and then click Tiny 5. Then let's make that a bit bigger. So let's make it about size 50. And let's add an outline. So you want to scroll down to where it says outline, and then increase the thickness to, let's say, 0.15. So now we have a font. It is high score. And now we have a font. So now we have a font in our game that's different. However, I don't like the outline, so let me edit it some more. Let's make it much bigger. Let's make score, let's say size 120. Let's keep high score at like 50, but let's extend it a little bit. So let's make the width like 325. let's make the position -1, -150, -250, and then let's align it to the right. Very cool. Let's make it like that. So now it kind of looks a bit better. Let's test that. Okay, yeah, that looks a teensy bit better. Okay, I'm gonna up the outline on the high score. Okay, you actually can't. You have to. The font stays the same, so you wanna. The outline stays the same for every single uh, text with that font, because the outline affects every single font. So I'm just going to find one that works for both. I think this is good. I like that one. Okay, cool. Next, let's edit the bird. So, the bird, do that. So, I want to click bird, and then go to the sprite renderer component, and change it to white. And then I want to go into our Flappy Bird assets, and drag in the bird sprite. And that'll be really big. So you want to double click on that, and change the import settings. So you want to make sprite mode single, format RGBA 32-bit, and then pixels per unit. Let's make it like 500. Right. 500. And then we have to re-put it there. Cool. So now we have our bird in the game. Cool. So now we have our bird in the game. Very nice. Now let's change the pipes. So let's go into our prefabs, open up pipe, and then change the sprites here too. So for square, drag in the pipe sprite into that, and that's really big, and it's tinted green. So let's make it white, and let's change the size to 1. There we go. That's still a little big, I think. So let's change it to 0.75, 0.75, maybe even 0.5, 0.5. Okay, cool. However, because we changed the size, the scale, the collider's all off, so we want to edit the collider again. So you want to go to where it says Box Collider 2D, and then click this symbol. Or you can just edit the size, which is what right here, which is what I want to do. Let's make it to be like 3, so it's width 3. Or actually, to give the player more leeway, let's make it 2.75. Or maybe even not. Let's make it like 2.5. Yeah, 2.5. So we get like a pixel of leeway. And then let's change the height to 15.5. 15.5. Cool. And let's just delete this square over here. So right click, delete, and then copy and paste this one and move it to -5. Let's flip it vertically. So let's rotate it. So let's rotate it 180 on the Z, and let's rotate it on the Y by 180 as well. Cool. And now if we go into our game, our pipes should have their texture on it. Cool, but they're very close together, so let's change that. Let's go back to our pipes. Let's make that 6 and -6. So now if we go back into our game, cool, yeah. They're spread apart. Cool, very nice. Now let's add a background. Oop, that's still playing. Let's add a background now. So to add the background, we're going to create a 3D object this time of type plane. So right click, create, right click, create 3D object, plane. Set it to 0, 0. We can't actually see it, so we want to rotate it. Right. We want to rotate it by -180. Right? Do we? Sorry, we want to rotate it by -90. Then, yeah, by -90. And then we are going to add a texture to that. And the reason why we made a 3D object is just so we could create a material. So what we're going to do is we're going to just in our normal assets folder, right click, create a shader graph, URP, and go unlit. And let's just call this BG for background. Cool. So what this is going to do is allow us to make a shader that edits the background. So I'm going to click plus over here, create a texture 2D, all this main underscore dot text. Going to drag that here, and then we're going to create right click, create node. Let's create a UV. To tiling and offset. And I'll basically what tiling and offset does is allows you to either tile a texture or move it. So you can offset a texture. And again, we're going to make this background parallax scroll. So we do want to offset it. So we're going to offset it. And I don't actually think we need this, so we're going to delete this. Never mind. We are going to... Actually, never mind. We do need this. We are going to then create node sample texture 2D. Drag the main text there. Drag the RGBA to the base color. add this right there. And then down here, you want to go right click, create. You want to right click the shader graph, so create material, and we're just going to call this BG material. And then we're going to set main text to the background. Very nice. And now we can drag this material right there. However, it's upside down, so we just want to rotate so yeah, you want to change that to 0, 180, nope, and then negative 270. Okay, cool. So you want to set the rotation to negative 270, the X rotation to negative 270, and the Y rotation to 180. Cool. Plane. Very cool. So that kind of adds material there. However, when we click play, what's happening? It doesn't really look that impressive. So we can do is one, make it bigger. So for the scale, let's make it 2 or 5. Nah, 3, and let's make the height. Oh, we need to make the Z 5. Let's move it down. Okay, and we can see it's a little bit blurry, so we want to go into the Flappy Bird assets, click the background, change it to single, wrap mode to be repeat. That's important because when we do parallax, we want the texture to keep repeating over and over. And the filter mode point. We click apply, and that smoothens out. Very cool. Now, we need to work on the offset. Because again, we want to be parallax. So let's go and create node. Let's go time. Very cool. Create node of vector 2. Drag time in there. The X. And change that to the offset. So now as we can see, it's moving. The background is moving. Very fast. That's very fast. So we want to change that. Let's first multiply time. This is kind of what we did in our code, right? Remember when we translated our pipes? We did vector 2 dot left times speed times time dot delta time. Well, this is basically the exact same thing. So let's multiply, create node. We want to get a multiply node. We want to multiply time with, let's say 0.5. Let's say 0.05. That would be cool. Let's put that output in X instead. So now that should go a little slower. Yeah, that is a lot slower. And I'm pretty sure parallax should go the other way. So let's multiply it with negative 0.05 to make it go the other way. Yeah, so now it's going the other way. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, that's parallax. It's our parallax background. I'm going to make it a bit slower. So I'm going to make it a 0.25. Very cool. Looking very nice now. There's another thing you can do to make your game look nicer. You can go over here in our hierarchy, right click, go to volume, and then click global volume. This adds post-processing effects. Go, make sure you're in your assets folder, go click new, and then go add override. And you can go post-processing. Personally, I like to do bloom. See, that kind of makes things brighter, but first you need to go to your main camera and click rendering and click post-processing, allow. And if you go to global volume, you can kind of edit this so you can make it really bright. I'm going to make it not really, I'm going to make it about, let's say 1. Change the threshold. I'm going to make it 1. So that looks looks pretty nice. That adds some bloom there. Let's add a vignette. So you can go add override, post-processing, vignette. Or, I don't know how to pronounce that. Something. Color, intensity. Cool. So let's set it to 0.45. That's pretty nice. What other global post-processing is there? There's film grain, lens distortion. Let's do chromatic aberration. That's pretty fun. Let's make it like around 0.05. Let's see if that does anything cool. Okay, I like that. So that's Flappy Bird. The last thing we want to do is add some sound. So what we want to do is on our bird, let's clear that error. On our bird, we're going to add a component we're going to call audio source. For our audio resource, we're going to go into our Flappy Bird assets and get that coin collect sound. We're going to unclick play on awake because that'll just mean it'll play when the game first starts, and we don't want that sound to play when the game first starts. Cool. Then we are actually, yeah, we don't even need to input this, so let's leave it. Okay, let's go into our scripts, bird script. This is the last piece of code we're going to write for this game. We're going to create a variable. We're going to go public audio clip. We're going to call that coin collect. Then, whenever we go on trigger enter whenever we, hit the trigger that is called points. This is where we increase our points. Let's go game object dot get component audio source. So this gets the audio source that is on our bird. Well, that's on the object that the script is on, which is our bird. Dot play one shot. This plays a singular clip. What did we call this? Why did we call this coin collect? It should be called points SFX. I don't know why I called it coin collect. Play one shot points SFX. So whenever we whenever we call the on trigger enter method, before we increase points, we're going to get the component audio source that's on our object, and then play the points SFX audio clip. So back in Unity, wait for that script to finish compiling. If we go on our bird, we should see a variable called points SFX. We can drag our coin collect sound effect on there in that variable. So now, whenever we play this game, whenever we need to collect a point, cool. Very cool. You can also make it a bit quieter. You can add a second parameter, which is the volume. So you can make it 0.5. Enter a decimal in Unity, you gotta need to add an F. So let's go back into Unity and play this game. Alright, so that's it for how to make Flappy Bird in Unity. This is our game. I hope you enjoyed these videos. Yeah, that's it. That's it for our Flappy Bird game.